Okay.
Good morning.
Say thank you to the people.
Good morning, and welcome to page 6. That reminds me of, the Bob and Doug McKenzie Christmas song where they do the 12 days of Christmas, and at the end they're like, and a beer.
Of course.
But I think it's for day 12. He's like, good day, and welcome to day 12.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. But yeah, good morning. Page 6.
Good morning.
It's happening. Before we get into today's topic, I personally just wanted to say thank you to all you crazy people that are out there listening. This is the first week that we released the instruction manual out into the wild.
Well, it was in the wild. We just told
It was in the wild.
Our friends and family and stuff.
Yeah, it was in the wild. Like, obviously, it's been out there on the internet, but I guess, yeah, you're right. It's at the point where we actually started telling people. And we just got a lot of really nice comments and messages and feedback, which obviously feels good because it felt vulnerable to put out there, I guess is the best way to describe it, for really no particular reason. Like, of course, our friends and family are probably going to say nice things and support us no matter what we do because they have to love us unconditionally. And then putting it out there to people on the internet that you have no idea who they are and you'll probably never actually interact with them doesn't feel that vulnerable. We both talked about like the populations of people it would feel the most vulnerable for each of us.
Yeah.
And for me, it's definitely like somewhere in between those two populations of people, like not your best good pals and not the people you don't know, but like casual acquaintances.
You said it was your work people. It's your work people.
Yeah, but like obviously I have good friends within my work community too, but I'm talking about like casual acquaintances, whether
colleagues.
That's at work or not, colleagues. Yeah. And why that feels most vulnerable, I don't know, because I don't think it's so much a fear of judgment. Again, we've said this so many times where we're just putting a microphone in between us for conversations we would most likely be having anyways, but there's just, I don't really know how to describe it, but it feels vulnerable. And the fact that we literally received a flood of so many kind messages, or even just people saying that they've like tuned in and listened is pretty amazing and feels really good, and definitely feels like a propulsion forward to want to keep doing it. So
it's nice. It's like you said, you would hope that you have support even if they don't like it. But it sounds and it seems like it's resonating with some people, and as we would have hoped, it's just talking and conversing and like talking about what seems like universal information, and that it should be more and more universal. This isn't our stuff that like we created and came up with. It's just
sharing things that we've learned along the way. Passing along information in hopes that
it's nice. So thanks to our friends and family and just the positive feedback and support, and we appreciate it, and we're not we're aware of how good it feels, and we're aware of how slippery that can get if it's just like trying to always go to that nice warm fuzzy stream and be like, all right, let's get these nice feelings, because we love it and we need it. That's that connection and that significance. But realizing that those tanks, if you're only like relying on those tanks, they're never going to get full enough. So just like the growth and contribution tanks, and being able to,
as opposed to a significance tank.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure. If you're that tank, that significance and certainty tank, will always have a leak in it. There's no amount, if that is your top priority and what's driving you, there's no amount that you can put in that will make you feel like it's enough. Right. Just like with money, like there's no amount of money, if that's like your top priority and you're chasing and that's like your main focus, there's never going to be any amount that's enough.
Absolutely. Just because you brought it up, not that I want to divert too much off of today's topic, but there's a podcast that I listen to pretty regularly with two sort of badass, like, female Canadian financial experts that I really love, called Money Feels. And in an episode I was listening to recently, they were talking about, just to your point about like feelings about money, they were talking about how the study where you polled, or not they did, but some study where they polled people about their feelings around money and how much money people feel like they have to feel secure. And it doesn't matter how much money you have. You could have like a couple $1,000s in your bank account, or you could be a millionaire. Most people don't always feel like they will be secure when they have, on average, I think it was like 3 times more money than they actually have, regardless of how rich they are. Maybe we'll do a whole thing on financial health in a different episode, but just to your point about the significance, I think it's relatable in that way. And just like, yeah, there is no amount that's enough.
Like there's a part in your brain that would be like, nope, times 3. I need times 3.
I need times 3. And then when I get there, I'll need another times 3. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, speaking about vulnerability, that's kind of a nice segue into today's topic, which is love languages and how to understand and communicate effectively with a partner in a romantic relationship. Obviously, human needs will come into this as well, because that's applicable to all relationships. Love languages can be applicable to all relationships, I suppose, as well, but we're sort of going to talk about it today in the context of like your relationship with your romantic partner.
And not just love languages. No, that is a great piece of information to understand and a tool to understand. And that it's relationships, romantic relationships, and a lot of these tools can apply to, social relationships with friends and stuff, or family.
Your parents,
but probably more diving into the romantic side of it, because that's the ultimate vulnerability, in my opinion, is the opening up and fully loving someone who was once a stranger. And because it's love by choice. This is not your kid or your parent who just provides everything for you, or your dog who is guaranteed to love no matter what. So the romantic side, in my opinion, that is the because a lot of people will say the most vulnerable, or like the most like fear, is when you have a kid, and that I think is true as far as like you want to like protect and do everything for that child, make sure they're safe. But that is also kind of genetic too, right? It's programmed into you when there's a little replica of you.
Well, and it's a guaranteed form of love, because literally, not perhaps as they age and they develop their own personalities and their own relationships, but literally they depend on you for life at minimum until they're like 12 to 13 years old. Like they physically rely on you for food, shelter, blueprint of how they'll form the rest of their relationships in life, how they learn to like interact with the world. So it's certain love, most definitely. For the first few years.
Certain love. So that's important to talk about the uncertain love. That's the romantic side of it,
right?
And that, I think it can be the best thing in your life, and then it can also, if not, you know, watered and fed and taken care of, can become the absolute worst thing in your life, where you'd be better off single, alone, by yourself, than with a partner and in a relationship that is
toxic,
literally just draining your life force and all you think about, and you just are unloading on each other, and like that stuff could be the best, it could be the worst. So if there's tools and information and universal information that will help make it better and perhaps the best, that would be nice to know.
That would be a great thing to know.
If only it existed. So anyways, goodbye everybody.
Well, we'll wrap it up here. No. Well, why don't do you want to start by talking about so there's 5 love languages. And
yeah,
let's talk about, so before we started, when we were sort of like planning and talking about the plan a little bit for this podcast, even before we started, interestingly, you were telling me how in your experience with life coaching clients, you find men, or the more masculine energy of a relationship, typically tend to shut down when you sort of bring up this idea of love languages.
Or even when I'm not even the one bringing it up, it's like their spouse or their girlfriend that like sends them things. Men, more masculine energy, we're going to figure shit out for ourselves, okay? I don't care if I get lost for 2 hours, I'll figure it for myself, okay? So that makes sense, right? Whether that's like workouts, if you go to any group training class, it's going to be at the minimum like 70% women.
Sure.
We don't want to be told what to do. We'll figure it out. Ask you know, look, you know where you're trying to convince me to do yoga and stuff sometimes, and it's just like coming up with a new excuse in the handbook.
I love hearing what excuses you come up with to not do yoga with me. What do you got for me today?
It's just my sleepy time. I just get so sleepy at this time.
Right.
Or the Jays are playing. It's baseball.
Yeah, baseball season is upon us. But yeah, just in terms of love languages. So we're going to use this term love languages throughout the podcast to refer to these 5 sort of streams of how to communicate in a romantic relationship. But if you're not into quote unquote love languages, just think about it as ways or strategies or like feelings that your partner might have, and consider it just a communication tool. You don't have to consider it like this fluffy quote unquote term. Love language.
Yeah. So that's what I find is like when it's like the term or like the title of something, it's like, well, it's easier to get people on board, people being males or masculine energy, when you're like, well, what if what I'm about to say is information that will help explain how every human expresses and receives love based on their experiences with their parents and growing up, and just kind of their
previous relationships,
their personality, their like top values. That probably makes sense, right? Where it's like you kind of learn how to express love and how you like somebody and how they receive it and how they give it. So what if this information, without putting a title on it, is, you know, let's try it on. If it fits and you look good in it, then perhaps you buy it.
Then you buy the damn suit.
And if it's a skinny mirror and I fooled you, then you can return it. Right?
So what are the 5 love languages?
Well, ways to express
and receive
love. They don't have to be the same. A lot of times they're different in what you express and what you receive. So first, in no particular order, number 1, acts of service, which is basically what it sounds like. You do things for others. You go, you know, grocery shopping, and then you tell them what you got. you catalog everything.
Look what I've gathered.
You know, look what I did for us. Or you are like a hard worker, you spend lots of time at work, and if you picture like a bird that's going around gathering all the sticks and making a nest and being like, look, sweetie, look at the nest, look at this, look what I did. Or like, just anything that would be like, I'm thinking of you and I'm doing it for you.
Provided for us.
Acts of service. Yeah. And that's a big masculine one. That's a big male one, because how the hell else are you supposed to express love other than...
Well, that way of showing, maybe not receiving, but of showing love and connection is sort of... it's changing, but historically it's ingrained into our society, I think, as the male. It's just like, I'm going out, making money, I'm coming home, look what I did for the family, and you just take care of the rest.
Yes, and that will merge into another topic we'll talk about today, but that is like the evolution of humans of go out, get a kill, get a hunt, bring it back for the tribe and community, plop it down on the table, look what I've done, love me for it, that kind of stuff.
Sure. So acts of service would be the first one. And
it's important to also realize and remember that it's not just going to be like, this is your one and this is the only way. Like, no, you're going to have all. There's going to be one or two, just like the human needs, there's going to be one or two that is your go-to, that you absolutely need to have fulfilled or use to show and receive love. But it's not just going to be like you're a connection person, or you're a this, or you're a acts of service person. It's like, no, you're currently using that the most.
But you need percent. Like if you think of it like a whole pie, and you cut the pie into different size slices. One slice is going to be the bigger, but there's still little other slices there that you can still enjoy and need if you want to eat the whole pie.
Yeah, like strawberry rhubarb.
Oh, blueberry.
Blueberry is the best kind of pie.
It's a great kind of pie. But yeah, so acts of service.
Right, like buying your love a pie.
Yes.
Okay, so acts of service, in no particular order. Number 2 is quality time. Quality time with the missus. So,
or the mister.
So explain what that could be, because I think that's a lot of females' feminine energy will have that kind of higher up than a male would.
Quality time, again, exactly what it sounds like, is literally just spending time with your partner, carving out time in your schedule for them. That could be anything from, if you are physically, like, hopefully it's physical time. Like for us, a big way that I think we express quality time together is just our walks, which we talked about in the first podcast. Like that's a good way for when we both have had busy days, we come home, we go walk down by the lake. That's where we get to, discuss ideas and catch up on our day and stuff like that. So like just the little act of spending physical time together. However, if you are in a long distance relationship, or you both work separate, sort of odd shift work hours, that could also be like making the time to communicate on the phone, just putting towards effort of like spending time together.
But not just any time, like trying to make it quality.
Right. So in that time, you're not on your phone the whole time. You're not distracted where you're just like watching TV and not communicating, or you're spending time in the same house. It's like where you're actually connecting, making each other feel valued.
Yeah.
Having time together.
Absolutely. Because that is becoming more and more rare, where it's like you're both on different couches, the TV's on in the background, and you're both on your phones and stuff. Like, that's not quality time, right? You're not filling each other up. You're not meeting each other's needs that way. There's no memories there. It's just you're in the same, That's biding your time, not quality time. Yeah, so that can mean a whole lot of different things. For us, we also do like a lot of indoor rock climbing and stuff, and that is like an activity where individually it's a workout and you get to feel like you're improving and working through problems and good for your body, but you're also spending time with your partner doing that. So and how will you be able to know what one is yours, what love language, what one or two you value the most? How are people going to be able to distinguish and figure that out? How would they know?
I think it's something, well, if you were unfamiliar with love languages prior to today, maybe take a recon of like what they all are and acknowledge what all of them are and learn about them. But I think, I mean, I don't have a great answer for that, but I think you just know. You know what I mean? Like, we'll maybe after you explain or we explain what all of them are, we can get into what our what we feel like each of us our individual love languages are, of how we both express and receive. Because I just, after learning about the love languages, I'm like, oh, well, it's so obvious to me, like this is the one in which I receive and this is the one in which I show. Like, if you're in touch with yourself, I think you just sort of know once you actually learn what they are.
Yes. I think that is true if you're in touch with yourself.
Right.
So if you're not, if this is new stuff and you haven't really thought about this, then the best way to do it would be just to retrace your steps and think back to a time when you did feel loved by a group of people or by one person, and, you know, step all the way back into that time, you know, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt. And when you put yourself back in those shoes, you basically do
what
like
happened
you do like a kind of like a crime scene investigation. It's like, okay, so what happened that made me feel loved, and then try to gather some more evidence of other situations, and then you'll probably be able to find it. And then you can do the same thing with when you love somebody and you were expressing it. That's the best way to do it. If you want to know how you do something, well, when's the last time you did it? And step back into that, and then let's figure it out.
Right.
So number one, number two, number one, sorry, is the quality time is 2. Number 1 is acts of service. Number 3 is going to be touch, physical touch.
Physical touch.
Yeah.
And that could be, I mean, I think probably when we talk about romantic or intimate relationships, the first thing people will think about is sex, which is important. That's one aspect of physical touch. But it could also be hand-holding, massaging. You know, your partner is making dinner in the kitchen and the other partner just comes and like rubs your back or slaps your butt.
Hugs. Foot massages, hand-holding, physical touch. Yes, because sex is obviously a whole bunch of physical touch at once, but people can just be lust-filled, like...
Yeah, you can have sex with somebody without actually caring about them really at all. Right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you like love the person or you care to like learn about their top love language. Yeah. So sex is a part of it, but it's certainly not the only thing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So we'll just get through the 5 and then we can, so physical touch. Number 4 is, what is number 4?
So what have we done? We've done acts of service, physical touch, quality time, gift giving.
Yes, gift giving. So that's definitely not ours, but it's pretty straightforward as far as...
Gift giving is literally where you show your affection by like providing or buying things for your partner. And I take that back. I don't necessarily mean providing, but gift giving in terms of like, it's not necessarily something that the person would need. Like there's a difference between providing in terms of like, I've picked you up groceries and, you know, I've dropped off the kids or whatever that is. Like that would be more acts of service.
Yeah.
Gift giving is literally like, I've bought you this necklace. I come home with flowers every Friday.
Yeah.
I got you, look at how much money I spent on this gift for your birthday. It doesn't necessarily, like gift giving doesn't necessarily have to equate to like a large dollar value. It could be also, look at this, like if you're artistically inclined, look at this picture I drew for you.
Something that shows them that you're thinking about them and you wanted to get something for them or create something for them.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so gift giving. And then the last one is words of affirmation.
Right.
Which basically it's just kind of reinforcing words and nice, you know, words that make them feel nice and appreciated and cared about, like, you know, I love you, or oh, you're so, you know, beautiful today, and like, you know, you're the best thing in my life, and like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Must be nice, right?
Right. Must be nice.
So
yeah. So a quick recap, the 5 love languages or ways you can show or express love and also receive love.
Acts of service, quality time,
words of affirmation, gift giving, and physical touch.
Physical touch.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now that we've sort of gone through all of them, so anybody who's listening, you can sort of take stock on that and like think about those, and then maybe retrace your steps to a time where you felt really like filled up and full of love. What happened before you felt that feeling? That will sort of help you assess what your love language is in terms of receiving. We'll get into how you also give it, which is because they can be different, right? Like you can receive love in a certain way, but you might express it in a completely different way.
Of course.
So for you, like what are your, knowing that you'll need all of those and there will be different times where you express and receive those in all of the ways, like what are maybe your top 1 or 2 ways that you give, and then your top 1 or 2 ways that you receive love?
Well, mine, give and receive, top 1 is physical touch for sure. 100%. I know that, and I know that just from basically childhood and how like my parents would show me love, or my dad would show me love, and it's like a lot of like, you know, foot rubs, or like being on the couch with my brother, and we're both, you know, like teenagers on a too small of a couch, where it's like I'm jamming my feet in his face and he's jamming
how you show
his
love?
Feet in my face, and then we start like, you know, trying to break each other's toes, and it's just like that's physical touch, even if it's horseplay, but it's physical touch.
Horseplay for sure.
You know, is horseplay a language?
Yeah, the 6th untalked about love language
is wrestling moves on the trampoline. he loves me, power bombed me off the trampoline.
Sure.
Yeah, so that, and then when we first started, you know, dating, on like our first few dates, I remember just giving you forearm massages for like an hour or 2 straight. And this is when you're in paramedic school, where you have to do like all the lift testing and starting to build up your upper body strength. Stuff, so your forearms and hands were just pooped. Yeah. And I would just come over, give you forearm rubs and stuff. And that was, you know, before I even knew of any of this information. So when you retrace it, you're like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that is kind of universal, huh? Right.
So you're saying both give and receive physical touch is your number 1?
100%. Yeah. Okay. And then if I was to think of, you know, a runner-up, definitely not gift giving. I think words of affirmation, you know, just like little messages that sometimes you'll write for me on the board.
The whiteboard when I leave for work at 5:15 in the morning.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's good to think about that. And those might change.
Of course.
Those might change. 100%. What about yourself?
I think probably my top two of how I receive would be quality time and physical touch.
Yeah.
So we sort of already alluded to this, but yeah, quality time. Like if my number one human need is connection, like by a landslide. So I think quality touch goes along really well with that in terms of like, I like to, with you, we've already talked about our walks. Even just doing this podcast together is like a form of quality time for me. I like to have really like deep conversations one-on-one with people, uninterrupted by like technology and TV and things like that. Like I really like to get into the nitty-gritty and like talk about real like feelings and connection with people. So that is how, like, if somebody is willing to do that with me, I think that's, to me, shows that they care about me, or that's how I perceive it. Followed by, we're talking about in the context of intimate relationships, like physical touch is up there for sure. Like I'm a big hand holder, I'm a big hugger. Obviously we've already talked about massaging. Like massages are, like if you're not massaging me on a regular basis, I'm like, what's wrong? So those are probably my two biggest ones in terms of receiving. In terms of giving, I think my top two are, again, quality time, but probably also acts of service. Quality time for the same reasons that I talked about. Like because I receive it in a way with like those deep conversations and uninterrupted, no technology type of time, I give it in the same way where that's how I like to show people. Like I'll plan things very far in advance, make sure that I have it in my schedule, and I will try, despite how busy my schedule is, I'll try not to be like, okay, well, I've got this plan with this person, but then, 2 hours later, I've got to go with this person and like cram too much into a day. Like I like to plan things in advance, so I know I'm going to have like hours of time with a person, and that is how I sort of show them that I care about them, or at least I try to. And then with the acts of service, the way I portray my acts of service is in terms of like cooking is a big thing for me.
Right.
So like I like to host people for meals. I like to bake for people.
Yeah.
That's like a sub form, I guess, of acts of service that I show my love and connection and care for you through food.
Yeah, what do you think any like Italian grandmother's love language would be, right?
100%.
Like, you're not gorging yourself?
Yeah, what's wrong with you?
Like, he doesn't, like, but that's another instance where this just makes sense.
Right.
Where it's like, this is universal, where it's like, okay, we all know the story of, the grandmother that's just never sitting down and constantly feeding people. And when the
and the preparation for days before and the day worth of dishes after, and
then when you're not gorging yourself, when you can't eat anymore, when you say no to food, they're like, oh, they don't feel loved, or like they try to guilt you, like, oh, what's wrong, kind of thing. So
you've only had 7 plates today.
So it's good shit to know. Good shit to know for sure.
So given that we've just talked about our individual love languages and how we both express and receive, because I would say so physical touch is a top 2 for both of us. You said words of affirmation. I would say words of affirmation is probably like maybe a third up there for me. Like I do like receiving words of affirmation from you, especially because we do work different schedules, and sometimes we'll go days where we just like see each other in passing. Like the text messages are important, the funny memes are important, things like that. So I would say roughly how we give and receive love does like more or less match up. Like we're in the same ballpark when we talk about how we love and receive. However, there are people in intimate relationships where how they give might be completely different than how they receive. Like one person, they might have their number one, like how they give love would be words of affirmation, for example, but how they but like they won't give gifts ever. Like, that's not how they show love. But they might have a partner, for example, that like gift giving is how they receive 100%. Like, the person might not think that they're cared for if they don't receive gifts, but the other person might not show it in that way at all.
Right.
So how can we figure that out?
Well, yeah, so what that leads to is two people can be, you know, in love with each other and they love each other, but then they can never actually feel loved by the other partner, even though they do love each other. So this is where it's important to apply the information, where it's like, well, if you actually do love your partner, would it be nice for them to know that and for you to be able to meet them where they're at by just tinkering how you show it, and then meeting their way of how they receive it. Because, you know, who gives a shit if yours is acts of service? It's not getting through to them, you know?
Yeah, you're literally communicating in a different language.
Yeah, yeah. So then it's going, you know, right over their head or right past them, and it's all for nothing.
And you could be like, yeah, you're an acts of service, but it's like, you know, I work so hard. Look at what I've provided. I'm working 14 hours a day to provide for this family. Why don't you see that? But then the partner's like, well, I'm actually a quality time person, so I don't care that you're gone 14 hours a day making like thousands of dollars a day for us. Like, I need you physically here and I need to have a conversation with you. I think that, you know, just in our society where, in Canada anyways, in the US, like, people are grit grinding, you know, like working really hard. And probably, like you alluded to earlier, that is a more common way for men to show that they care.
Provide,
right? It would be, really valuable information to be like, okay, there is a part of that. I do, as your partner, appreciate you working for the family, and obviously we need that.
We need it.
We need that to survive. I need that for shelter. I need that for food. I need that so our children can be provided for. But can we like scale that back a little bit and fit in an hour or two of quality time? So while you're doing that, and I do appreciate it, I also feel like I actually have you as a partner and an intimate partner, as opposed to just a fucking ape that's like bringing home food. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yes, bananas have not gone up in price, and everything else has. So this is just a PSA for bananas.
The grocery prices.
Everything else is going up. Bananas, always readily available, good pricing.
For all your potassium needs.
And that's why I have 3 a day, and that's only why.
Yeah,
so that's the information, and that is why it can be so useful and improve your relationship so much.
So what strategies? I mean, so I think the first part is learning the love languages, learning what they are, thinking about examples of how one may show those love languages, and from there you can decipher what your partner, or not even your partner, again, your parents, your family, your friends, people in your close circle, what their love languages are, taking stock and just like the recognition piece of that, of learning about it. And then in your intimate or your romantic relationship, recognizing that perhaps your partner has a different love language than you. And then from there, I don't think there's like a hack or an easy way to do it, but just the recognition of knowing like what their love language is. From there, tailoring like, oh, okay, I've been trying to show my partner that I love them through words of affirmation, but after I've kind of taken stock and learned about this, I've learned that actually their love language is physical touch. It can be difficult if that isn't if physical touch is your bottom need.
And you don't have a lot of experience. You say that you're no good at massages.
Yeah, like then that can be challenging. But then it's just sort of like at how you get good at anything is through practice, right? And knowing that it's not going to be perfect every time, but sort of like coming back to that reminder of like, this is their love language. This is how they receive love. I can start by, when we go out in public, holding their hand. Like that might be uncomfortable for me if physical touch is my last need, but maybe I just start by holding their hand when we go out to dinner together, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe I start by, when we're sitting on the couch, massaging their foot with their sock on to start, and then we
then we lose the sock.
Yeah, then we work up to the sock off. But there, again, knowing that it's not going to be perfect every time, and I think it would be unrealistic to, if one need is your partner's top but it's your bottom, just being able to be like, all right, I'm doing a complete 180 and I'm changing it all together. Like, I don't think anybody is expecting that, but just the awareness to start to work on it so that your partner, like, you love your partner, but you can actually show your partner love in the way that they're actually able to receive it.
They can actually start feeling it. Yes.
Right.
100%. Because that would be a pretty big shame, right? You are in a relationship where you love them and they have the faintest idea about it.
Yeah. They're aware that you love them.
And then just to bridge the gap a little bit into 6 human needs again, we talked about that a few times already, how they apply to the individual. Well, a relationship is just 2 individuals, maybe 3,
maybe 4. Who's to say?
But typically 2. And your job in the relationship is to make sure your partner's needs are being met, and their job is to make sure yours are being met. And another portion of your job is to, if you don't feel like yours are being met, to express that to them, and then their job is to adapt and meet them. So to meet your partner's need, like, how certain do you feel in the relationship that this person loves you, that this person is here for the long run, they're not going to leave you, that they don't have, other, side pieces on the side and that kind of stuff? That's certainty in the relationship, right? How much variety do you get? How much variety do you show? You do, random spontaneous acts, or you go date nights, so you do different activities. How much variety is your partner experiencing? Connection and connection/love. That's important to realize that's the human need. It's not just connection, it's connection/love. So, like, how loved does your partner feel? How connected do they feel to you? Significance, how important and special do you make them feel? And
that's
thought
a big
about.
one, I think.
Yeah.
And then growth, right? Can you grow together as partners?
Are you guys growing? Are you growing a family? Are you growing a business? Are you improving aspects in your life? Are you moving towards something? And
are you buying a house together? Are you buying a property? Are you it doesn't even have to be like things where you're generating money or creating children, but like, are we maybe you're big like travelers or campers, where you're like, we're planning for this big camping, we're not campers, but I'm just saying we're planning for this big like backcountry camping trip together where it's going to be 2 weeks. Like, can we plan for that together and get the equipment and like sort of create this route together that's going to be successful? Like, it could be an activity based growth like that,
because it's not one for one, right? One thing that you do can meet all 6 of these needs. That's kind of the goal, is where, like, okay, if we are planning a trip, and like a once-in-a-lifetime trip, obviously there's going to be a whole lot of connection together. There's going to be a whole lot of variety. There's going to be a whole lot of, like, growth and learning new things. And, yeah, so growth and contribution. Like, how much does your partner feel like you are contributing to their cause as well?
And the relationship as a whole.
Helping them, improve their life and growing and their passions and their activities, and not just kind of humming and hawing like about their day, but like actually interested in seeing them improve and stuff.
Right.
So that is how you get a love slave, is meeting their 6 human needs at 10 out of 10.
Meeting their 6 human needs while also being aware of their love language and your own love language, so you can sort of create this ebb and flow of giving them the type of love, or putting enough love into the gas tank that actually fits for them, and then also receiving it in the proper gas tank that works for you.
Yeah.
So those are, the quote-unquote love languages, or ways to
/ information.
Information about how you love, or how you
express and receive love.
Give and receive love. And then, I mean, part of that just goes along with communication, right? Like you'll learn how to communicate those needs effectively with your partner. I want to take that opportunity to sort of segue into a different, I don't know if it's necessarily a communication model, but a piece of information about how to communicate in a relationship that certainly when you taught this to me, I was like, holy shit, that makes so much sense. And I know you've had conversations with this about different men in our lives, like male friends and family members. And they've also had the same reaction of like, holy shit. So maybe this is a nice place to branch off and talk about the Meadow Report.
Right. The Meadow. We're starting Tom Cruise. So again, Meadow Report. Just so everybody can hear this properly, Meadow being like MEADOW, because when you first taught this to me, I thought you were saying meta report. Yeah, so meadow as in like a grassy meadow. Yeah. So again, it's another term that in this case helps to explain how males, females, more masculine energy, more feminine energy communicate, and the methods of how we kind of look at communication and what lens and what value we put to different forms of communication. And this has a lot to do with like human evolution of like thousands of years. And again, this is not me making this stuff, coming up with this stuff. This is information that's out there that I happen to hear and listen to and apply. And then I try it on, it fits,
it resonates,
it makes sense. So I continue to wear those clothes. So the Meadow Report, I do have a blog on my website. I'm going to read a little bit about it so I don't, I've already come up with the nice words. I might as well read them.
Sure.
And by the way, the website is torontoperformancecoaching.com, and that is just like my coaching website with blogs, and our podcast is there, and just a little bit about like my coaching and myself. And
if you want to read, we'll do a plug again maybe at the end, but a lot of the stuff we're talking about on here, Johnny has written blog posts about in the past. So if you want to review any of this stuff, or if you need if we've gone through it a little bit quickly and you want more information about it, torontoperformancecoaching.com.
So the example I start this with is, if you've ever had the experience when you're either listening to or telling a story to your partner about something bad or something like unforeseen or something like a problem that happened that day, and before the story is even over, you've both become frustrated and angry at each other, and then you proceed to give each other like the silent treatment for the next hour or a day. And it's like, well, what the hell happened here? So my partner was telling me something about their day, something bad, or I was telling my partner, and we both got frustrated at each other from how we were communicating, what we were both trying to do, and then silent treatment, anger, whatever happens. And that happens like for most couples every month,
often,
few weeks, every month or so. And what happens, basically, the short answer is that the guy or the more masculine one in the relationship will listen to the story and will start trying to find the problem and fix it. It's like within about 5 to 10 seconds, when you feel your partner is upset or something happened to them, you're going to be trying to figure out the problem and fix it.
And sorry, just to stop you there for a quick moment. I think probably the male or the more masculine energy tends to do that, and for evolutionary reasons you'll get into why in a second, I'm sure. But to relate it back to the 6 human needs, I would actually argue that if certainty is your driving force, you may be more inclined to do that as well, because your partner has approached you with a problem, you want to be certain and have it all be peaceful and all be well. If your driving force is certainty, you may be also inclined to jump to trying to fix the problem so that things remain even keel and things aren't off balance.
Yes, and that we all have both, that masculine and feminine side in each of us, sometimes females will be like more tipped towards the masculine side.
Of course.
And males, I think I'm tipped more towards the feminine side. Like,
well,
as far as just
the
introspective and like,
observant.
Observant. I'm a guy, anatomically. Okay.
We'll do a whole separate page on gender identity, but yeah.
Oh no.
Sorry, I cut you off there. Continue.
Oh, you cut me off. How masculine. So anyways, the one, the more masculine energy in that moment is trying to find the problem, fix it. More feminine one is feeling like they're not being listened to and interrupted, and then kind of feel like that partner's not listening, and then they might start to withhold information. They might start to be like, well, I'm not going to tell him certain things because I know it's just going to end up in a fight or something. I'll start withholding bad things that happen because I know where this goes. So we have one partner who listens to the story for a couple dozen seconds, then starts searching for the solution to the problem, then offers that solution because they believe that is what is needed to fix the problem, and they love their partner, so they don't want them to be in any emotional or mental or physical pain. So from like a guy's perspective, this is like classic boom boom, in and out, fixer upper.
Why don't you just patch it up?
Done. Patch it up. We're just going to go ahead and patch this up, and then we're going to move on. And then, but from the more feminine perspective, from the woman's perspective, it's a disaster. It's like
they feel unheard.
They feel unheard. Yeah, unlistened to, insignificant. Right? So this is where that term, the Meadow Report, that relates to human evolution, kind of makes sense. So perhaps you try it on, and if it fits, then you go for it. So back in the day, like thousands of years ago, if you do believe in evolution and the coming from the monkeys and the apes, and then slowly turning into humans and still living as hunter-gatherers and like cave people, and how you still have to communicate with your tribes and stuff before language
evolved,
even like exists, or even when language starts to evolve, you're still pretty primitive. So thousands of years ago, everyone was part of hunter-gatherer societies. The men were the hunters and the women were the gatherers. Men generally went out with a spear or a club and took care of business and drug the carcass back to the cave, and they were done, and someone else dealt with it then. So men are wired to go out, solve a problem, take care of business, and be done. And that's kind of how we do things. That's how we operate.
Whereas the more female energy, so now you've brought me, or like historically, evolutionary wise, literally the woman, the female, they weren't necessarily the ones, well, actually I won't say not necessarily, they weren't the ones going out and doing the clubbing and the spearing and bringing home this carcass. Their contribution to the tribe outside of, child rearing and that type of thing, in terms of providing for the tribe, was gathering the berries, gathering the leaves, right?
Gathering the roots, the things for shelter, the stuff that is super necessary and just as valuable as survival to the tribe. It's just like the physical characteristics, right? Like the bigger and stronger one would be the male. So it's like, yeah, we'll go, risk our lives doing this stuff.
Get this antelope, and bring it back.
But when the gatherers would go out into the meadows and find the right berries and the roots and the leaves and the sticks and the firewood, they needed to share that information about where the berries were, where the firewood was, like
which berries were poisonous or edible.
Yes, you go out in the second meadow, past the stream, past the big rock. There's this bush, about 30 paces past the little anthill. Then you want the berries from the bush on the left, not the right, because the right one's going to kill you immediately. and so
much detail.
You learn this detail and information, and then you want to share it with your tribe because that information dies with you. So you share it about exactly where this stuff is. Because that information is like just as valuable as the resource itself, because then that means it's renewable resources, right? Like where you got these things, where the man, there's no like
man clubbed antelope, brought antelope back.
Yeah. So there's no exact like path or route that you just follow that immediately like brings you back to that cow or that ox or that buffalo kind of thing, right? So for both men and women, this way of interaction and communication was life and death. The hunters would never have all that much to say about the hunt, because every hunt's different. There's no right path. It's always kind of random.
But it yielded results.
Yielded results. And then with the gatherers, there is a perfect formula and list of instructions that are needed, because what if you skip some minor details and you poison the whole tribe? So women are wired to go out, observe all sorts of things in detail, bring that detail back and share it with everybody. Where men are just solve problem, done, everything's good. So, and in both of those cases, like high degrees of each skill, male, female, masculine, feminine, they're both related like directly to the survival and prosperity of the tribe. Like the best hunters and the best gatherers, you want both of those, because come winter, when there's no like animals around, you're going to need all that stuff gathered to get through the winters. And if you don't, then you're going to die. So it's equally as important.
Of course.
Just because, like, you know, typically males will be the more, like, you know, physically stronger one. If there was, if it was just that, still going to die. Still going to die. Or you're not going to have, you know, any kids, and then eventually you'll die. So with that, maybe that's, you know, ring some bells. How you would apply it, gentlemen, two things.
For all the men in the crowd, listen up.
The Meadow Report, that like when they are giving you that meta report, the information, the thing that happened that's bad or unforeseen, and they're sharing that information, it does not have to be something that you fix. And typically it doesn't matter if you like remember it or not, like in every detail. Just needs to share it with you, needs you to be present and listen, but typically expects no action from you as a result. Usually, most of the time, she's already figured out the solution and it's being taken care of, because she don't need you. Okay, she's usually already.
I don't need no man.
She's already figured the thing out, but that's just how they're wired to communicate and express information. And then ladies, or you know, the more feminine energy at that time, we men sometimes forget that you're delivering this meta report, and our brain will always go to like that, looking for a problem and trying to solve it. So when we forget, we'll try in vain to solve it, but understand that's how we're wired. We're here to like solve problems, break through, have peace, move on, take a big problem, put in a little box, move on. So your survival depended on listening and sharing, our survival depending on like hunting down and killing things, moving on. So just understanding and kind of altering and adapting how you or just understanding your communication when you do feel like that nagging desire to find a problem and fix it. And so, you know, trying to hold off on that and just listening and realizing that the problem's already been taken care of and moved on. And then for the one giving the meta report to also understand that we, you know, help us out, throw us a bone. You know, don't expect us to be like present and super, like our listening is just bang on for more than like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And if it's just constantly like you come to us with problems and you expect us just to sit there for minutes and minutes and minutes, like every day, or like that is literally going to kill us, because all we want to do is like make you happy and solve problems. And if you only bring us problems one after the other without letting us help, like you're gonna have a beaten down person pretty soon, pretty quickly.
I think a lot of that speaks to even outside of stories that involve problems, whether they need fixing or whether they've already been fixed. I can only speak for myself, but I would sort of generalize this to women in general. Women tend to be more detail oriented. Like I am a lady of detail, but that detail has allowed me, I think, to be successful in school, in my career. Like even in some of the previous episodes we've talked about, like I love getting into the nitty gritty about like science and biology and physiology, right? And that want and apt to like understand the nitty grittiness, I think, has allowed me to have a really good science-based understanding of the human body, which has then allowed me to be successful in my careers, right? But even if I'm not coming to you with a problem, like even if I'm just sharing something about my day, I just like to explain the whole backstory on everything, right? Like I could be like, so at work today, I was talking to this one nurse. You probably know this nurse. We met her this one time at this Christmas party 3 years ago. Remember? She's the one that had the kid that did this. Okay, anyway, so when I was talking to her, this is what happened. And like, I just like to cover all the bases of detail.
And I just have that like 1,000-yard death stare, the eyes glaze over, like, uh-oh, I don't know what she's saying.
Yeah, exactly. So even if it isn't coming to you with a problem, I would say certainly it's true for myself. Details. It's just the detail. Women tend to be more detail oriented.
And if you're not detailed, like if your female friend, both like, you know, pretty feminine, if they don't share the details, if they keep it like to one-word answers, you feel like they don't trust you, or they're not sharing, or you don't feel as connected.
I'm asking for details. Like if somebody's explaining a story and I don't feel like I have enough detail, I'll interrupt and be like, okay, but who is this person? Right. Like, so what happened with them before? Like I love to know the details.
Yeah, I know you've improved it.
I have, after learning the Meadow Report, for sure. I understand.
But there's been lots of times in the past where I know you got this story. We want this story, but you're still talking about some details that don't matter about something that is, you're trying to like set the table for the story, and the men are just sitting around being like, where's the meat? Bring the meat. Why is she doing that with the napkins? And just starting to squirm. And like after a couple dozen seconds, we are done.
Yeah, but again, and after learning about this communication strategy and understanding where the Meadow Report comes from, like again, it's because I am so detail oriented, it's something that's definitely resonated with me. And now, you know, if I get a little bit too off the rails, you have gotten good in like a kind, gentle way about being like, Meadow Report, come on, Meadow Report.
What's with the yakking?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because there is. Again, you're not going to be like perfect and bat 1,000 with this stuff, but just more times than not, be like, you know, catching yourself and negotiating with each other, like meeting them a little bit halfway, listening without trying to fix, and then also not overindulging in the details, knowing that this person is trying their hardest and I might only have them for a minute or two. So yeah, that's important.
Absolutely. Anything else we want to share about communicating in relationships, or how you give and receive care and love?
Well, I can see on the screen there, what's that last thing? The pause.
Oh yeah. So we have a Google Doc where we sort of just as we have thoughts or information that comes up about things that we want to talk about. It's sort of this like live living document. And I can see here under our love languages, communicating in intimate relationships part of this doc, my last point is the power of a pause in big bold letters before responding. to create a response instead of a reaction. So this is something that I think everybody probably needs to work on. We continue to work on, but sometimes a comment that I'll have to you, and it does come, I think, from that evolutionary space as a male or the more masculine energy about wanting to fix a problem, is, you know, I'll tell this story or I come to you with this issue, and then there's like an immediate response.
Trying to downplay something.
Yeah. Trying to fix something immediately, where then I'll get like angry or be perturbed and be like, well, you're not listening. I don't want you to fix it. I want you to listen.
Yeah, that's like the express train to an argument where you have that. It's like, you know, we got somewhere to be. I want to leave at like this time. It takes this long to get there, and then I'll jump in. It's like, are you sure? I think it takes.
Well, it only takes 5 minutes. It only takes 5 minutes, you know. So one thing that we have been working on and will continue to work on, and not by we, do you mean me? I was trying to be kind for the sake of the podcast, but one thing we need you to keep working on, no, I'm just kidding, is the power of pause. So, and this doesn't have to be just in intimate relationships. I think this is a really important and valuable strategy regardless of who you're communicating with, whether it's family, intimate relationship, or honestly even at work, of just before you verbally respond to somebody, you can literally count it in your head. Count to 5, count to 10, take that pause where you say nothing. And much like other things we've been talking about, where it's going to take some practice, the first few times you do it, it might feel awkward, but take the pause to think about, is this something I actually want to respond with? Is this what I truly mean? Or can I take this couple seconds to decompress and then actually give a response answer instead of a reactionary answer?
Yeah, and think about what that reactionary answer is doing. How is it meeting your need for certainty, probably? Or how is it helping eliminate a problem or take a problem and making it smaller, or getting control of the situation? That's what most of those reactions will be in my like experience. It's like, you know, trying to take control a little bit of the day or the situation by having that reaction, like craving certainty. So just acting out of that, or hearing a problem or something bad and then reacting to make it, to lessen the blow, to try to make it better for them. So you're doing it for good reasons. This is all, you're doing the shit for good reasons and good intentions, but it leads you to the things that you don't want. It leads you to the exact thing that you don't want or deserve. So if you change how you do it, you'll get there. You'll get what you want.
I have just a real life example, if I can share on this exact same thing. So we have a trip coming up in the next month. We're traveling to the US for a friend's wedding, and we are staying at a different location than where the majority of our friends are staying. And we initially, before we booked it, we sort of went back and forth about where we were going to stay, if we're staying at this other place that will be of less cost to us.
We're going to Vegas. They're staying
I was trying not to make it so personal and direct to us, but yes, we're going to Vegas for a friend's wedding.
Yeah, they're staying at a casino hotel. We're staying at like a timeshare.
Yeah.
How long? Oh, how far away?
Well, this is where the whole thing comes in. So obviously we made the decision to stay in the timeshare. It worked out for us both, like just financially and planning wise and whatever. And there was perhaps like a brief moment when we finally came to this decision where I was like, oh, I'm a little bit bummed, not even bummed, but I was just like, oh, we're not going to stay with our friends. Like whatever, I had a certain feeling about it, right? And then immediately, like as those words or that sentiment came out of my mouth, you're like, well, we're only staying, like, you know, it'll only take us like 10 minutes to walk there. And if you've ever been to Vegas, you know that nothing is a 10-minute walk. It might look like a 10-minute walk on the hotel, but by the time you cross over the overpaths, and then like, you know, it might take you 15 minutes in total to walk past a hotel because they're so huge. The reality of that,
it's like 25
minutes.
Yeah.
So then I immediately got like pissed off because I'm like, always downplay, going back to absolutes, you always downplay the time. It's not just going to be 10 minutes. Why are you downplaying it? You're not listening to me, right?
And obviously I'm doing it for a good reason.
Of course.
To make it seem like it's not such a big deal and that you'll feel better about it.
Right. And but the thing is, you immediately recognized that after, and you came back to me, which I really appreciated. And, you were like, I realize now after looking it up that it's not only going to be 10 minutes. I just want you to be happy and I want you to be excited about staying in the timeshare, which then that was a pause moment. And I also really appreciated the apology, validated my feelings about not downplaying it. And all was well, and we didn't waste a day being upset at each other.
No, like realizing
this is a tie-in for all the podcast episodes in one about that exact
realizing like when you're about to plant one of those like argument seeds, and you're like putting it into the soil and the fertilizer, like oh no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to put this guy and water it, and then it eventually gets bigger and bigger, and then it just keeps happening. Like. Yeah, you're not going to bat 1,000, and you probably don't want to bat 1,000 because you're not going to learn anything. But just to be able to recognize, realize, adapt, and improve things for sure.
Right.
But yeah, that's a big thing for us where you'll say it's going to take this amount of time. And I'm just taking the under. I'm taking the under, and I'm like just wild card. Just like, no, it's going to take probably 15 minutes. That happened on Thursday, where you're like, you probably want to give yourself like 45 minutes. I'm like, no, at that time, it's not going to be any traffic. And then I'm like, I'm trying to get control of an uncontrollable thing, like other people's cars and traffic, where it's like, no, I already know it's not going to take that long.
Yeah, there's no way commuting in Toronto at 7:30 in the morning on a weekday that you would want to give yourself extra time.
I know, and that's kind of just the grabbing the certainty rope.
Sure.
Trying to tie off that rope on the pier. It's like, oh shit.
To the old GO train.
It's not tied to the boat. I tied it to the dock, but it's not tied up to the boat. Might want to double check that one.
Yeah. All right, so to recap today, love languages, ways to communicate receiving and expressing love. We have acts of service, words of affirmation, physical touch, gift giving, and quality time. So maybe take time to learn about those, reflect back on both a time where you felt loved and what preceded that to make you feel that love. Also taking stock of your intimate partner and thinking of some examples of times where you could feel that they felt really loved and what preceded that. And then practicing how to show that your love languages. We talked about the Meadow Report. If you want a recap on that, you can visit Johnny's website, torontoperformancecoaching.com. He's got a great blog that sort of recaps everything that we said there, and you can learn about that. And then the power of pause.
The power of a pause, for sure. And why do this, right? Why apply this information?
Well, so that you can feel very fulfilled and loved in your relationship, and so you can also give love to the people that you love in a way that they're actually capable of receiving it. And I think it's pretty amazing once you tune into the love language and show your partner love in a way that they can actually receive it. You'll probably be amazed at how much love and connection you get back from them, which will in turn improve your life.
And remember that you're not trading horses. This isn't horse trading where it's like, okay, I met them how they receive it for an entire day or a weekend, and then like you expect it back immediately. Like that's not how it's supposed to work. I don't give you 4 camels and you give me like a bushel of strawberries. It's like, no, it's the vulnerable, unconditional, well, not unconditional, I guess, but the
vulnerable
love that you give, and you do it for yourself and your partner, and hopefully they also reciprocate.
Great. Okay. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. We love you guys, and see you soon for page 7.
Page 7, what will that be?
We'll keep that under wraps for now. We've got page 7 in the works.
Okay. Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye.